Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire supported by Glendavid Books. The decision to merge the eternal flame at the Amar Jawan Jyoti under India Gate with the torch at the National War Memorial has sparked a huge controversy. And much of it centers around explanations given by government sources to a variety of media channels. Joining me today to talk about this issue is India's former army chief and the victor of the Kargil War, General Ved Prakash Malik. General Malik, let's start with the National War Memorial, which is something army chiefs like you have been demanding for decades. The decision to merge the Amar Jawan Jyoti flame at India Gate with the torch at the National War Memorial has sparked a huge controversy. Let me start by asking you, how do you respond to this raging controversy?
Karan, firstly, thank you for asking me to be on your panel. I, in fact, do not like this controversy, which I think is quite unnecessary. And unnecessary, we have politicized an issue which should not have been done, and which is a purely military matters as far as I'm concerned. You're right. It took us decades to demand a National War Memorial. And now that we have got the National War Memorial and there is a flame there, yesterday, the old flame under the India Gate has now been merged with that. I think it was a natural thing to do. There is only one place where we go and pay homage to all our soldiers who have laid down their lives for the country. And we take the foreigners also, the foreign dignitaries are taken to that place. So I think that the controversy was unnecessarily politicized the whole issue. It was a purely military tradition which has now been followed up. And I think what we did yesterday was the right thing to do.
One of the consequences of moving the flame from under India Gate is that it's also been moved away from Indian soldiers who died in the First World War, as well as Indian soldiers who died in the Third Anglo-Afghan War. Would it not have been better to maintain two flames, which incidentally, I gather from the papers today, was a commitment made in 2019?
Well, I'm not sure about the commitment made, but I do feel that there can be only one National War Memorial. You can't have two places. Then you will start discriminating where to take the foreign dignitaries or where to go and salute. So it is, in my way of looking at it, this is the right thing to do, to have one place. Otherwise people will start discriminating, which is better, which is more important, things of this nature. And all nations, all over the world that I have been, and I have seen those memorials, there is only one National War Memorial, which is what we have got now. And there is no disrespect, Karan, let me emphasize, there is absolutely no disrespect to soldiers who have died before independence.
I hear that very clearly, General Malik. Let me put you in that context, the explanation given by government sources to PTI. But in fact, the same explanation, word for word, has appeared in several newspapers and several TV channels. However, I'll rely on PTI because it is considered the most reputable of the lot. And this is what the government source said to PTI. The names inscribed on India Gate are a symbol of our colonial past. Do you approve of this attempt to distinguish between Indian soldiers who died before independence from Indian soldiers who died after independence?
No, I do not discriminate. The soldiers die for the nation. And it doesn't matter which political party or which regime is ruling the nation. When our soldiers went to fight during World War I or subsequently during World War II, they were fighting for the government of the day. And we lost over nearly 90,000 troops during World War I. And the name described on India Gate, which came up in 1932, I think is only about 3,300 or so. So it doesn't have all the names, but it commemorates all the soldiers who died not only during World War I, but subsequently even during the Afghan War and in the Northwest frontier, soldiers who had died till 1932. So there is no discrimination at all. There is no disrespect to anybody at all. Also, let me tell you, now there are no names of soldiers who died during Second World War. There are no names of soldiers under India Gate or near India Gate of soldiers who died during 47-48 war, or 1965 war, or 1962 war. But we have now National War Memorial, which has names of all the soldiers who died after independence, without any disrespect to soldiers who died for the country in the earlier wars. And fortunately, both these locations are so close to each other that one can always pay homage to both places without forgetting any of our soldiers who died.
That's a very important point you make, General Malik. Let me pursue with you a little this point about the colonial past and how the army relates to it, because it's something I don't think audiences understand, but it's very important that you give them the correct perspective. Is it not the case that many regiments of the Indian Army have a history that goes back 200 years, sometimes 250 years? They were all founded in British times. And I believe that also applies to your own regiment, the Sikh Light Infantry, which traces its history to the Royal Sikh Pioneers in 1857. Tell me, do Indian regiments honor, cherish, and feel proud of their history? Or is this now dismissed because it goes back to colonial times?
It is not dismissed. It cannot be dismissed. And you are right what you are saying. So therefore, the Indian soldiers, it doesn't forget the tradition that it has that we have got. And there are a large number of our, I would say, values that we have got, or the ethos that we have maintained, that comes from the centuries now. If the regiment is old, they carry those traditions with them, and that we are following even today. So there is no question of forgetting the traditions that we have acquired over the centuries. Some of the regiments are really many centuries old. So the Indian Army has not forgotten, and I don't think it will ever forget the traditions it has acquired, not only during the British time, even the earlier times also, I can say that.
Let me talk a little to you about World War I and World War II. Is it not the case that neither of those world wars would have been won without the very significant contribution of the Indian Army? And in World War II, Indian soldiers laid down their lives in tens of thousands to keep the world free from Hitler, from Mussolini, and Admiral Tojo in Japan. Are those things that the Indian Army is still proud of? Or has it been pushed to the background because it happened before independence?
No, they have not been pushed to the background. As I said earlier, that we continue to honor, after all, the battle honors that Indian Army it won during the First World War or Second World War, they are still being carried. They're still being honored in our quarter guards, wherever the battle honors are kept. So there is no question of forgetting them. And as I said, the soldiers fight for the government of the day. And that time during World War I and II, they fought for the government of that particular day. And there is no question of forgetting those battle honors that we have got. And as I said, what is very important is that there is a large, the ethos, the tradition that we have acquired, the camaraderie, the value system that we have acquired, that continues even today. So there is no question of forgetting or permitting anybody to forget it. Let me also say that.
That's a very important thing you said. Not only is there no question of forgetting, there's no question of permitting anyone to forget. In other words, there is a conscious, determined effort to keep alive the cherished values, traditions, and ethos, which the army upholds with honor.
That's true. That is true. And that is why I'm making the statement, because there is so much that we have learned and we are carrying even today with us.
I'm very glad to hear you, General Malik, speak so clearly on these issues, because it will inform the audience of things they don't understand and how they must avoid trying to dismiss history and tradition by referring to it as the colonial past. One of the strangest things about this claim made by government spokesman to PTI that it's all the colonial past is that in 2015, when Prime Minister Modi visited France, he went out of his way to go to Neuve-Chapelle to lay a wreath at the graves of Indian soldiers who died there. Clearly, when he did that, he wasn't honoring India's colonial past. He was honoring a proud tradition that India fought for democracy to keep the world safe.
You're right, Karan. And it is not only Prime Minister Modi, but I know many other prime ministers also who went there. Incidentally, I also, when I visited France, the first place that I went to was Neuve-Chapelle. And there I laid the wreath to the Indian soldiers. When I went there, we had representatives from France, we had representatives from UK, and we also had representatives from Belgium, which is right on the border. So, let me tell you one thing. We cannot forget it. And there are people who tend to distort history, which is not right. Now, during World War I, I do not know how many people know that Mahatma Gandhi, he raised a unit of Indian soldiers as stretcher bearers in London.
In South Africa, sir. In South Africa. In South Africa.
No. I'm saying that even in London, and both he and his wife were looking after these Indian wounded soldiers who were evacuated to London, to UK. So in South Africa, yes, it happened, but that was earlier. I'm now talking of 1914 to 18 war, First World War.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because Mahatma Gandhi too honored, respected, and looked up to Indian soldiers and did not regard them as people who were fighting for a colonial master. And that is the important message that is going. The government spokesman, whoever they are, must remember that Indian soldiers fought for values no matter who the government of the day was. Don't dismiss their traditions and history by calling it the colonial past. I have one last question before I end, General Malik, and I'm going to end that by quoting from the famous epitaph at Kohima. When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today. Those are very powerful, emotional words, General Malik. And that is an epitaph for Indian soldiers who died defending India. They weren't fighting for Britain in Europe, North Africa, or the Middle East. If we dismiss their deaths as the colonial past, is it not just hurtful? Is it not ingratitude? Is it not letting our people down?
Karan, but even now we continue to honor our soldiers and we continue to have ceremonies at Kohima Cemetery, not only in Kohima Cemetery, but even other places. And similarly, as I said, that I, as an army chief, I myself went to Neuve-Chapelle to lay the wreath to honor the Indian soldiers who had died during World War I and World War II. And that tradition continues. We continue to honor our soldiers because they died for the nation. They did not die for the government of the day. They did not die. Of course, they fought for the government of the day, but they did not die for any political parties and all. Today, what I am saying is this political polarization that is taking place, that unfortunately is creating all the problems. And there is absolutely no need for a controversy. It is a military tradition, military honor that we are now following, and we should continue to follow.
I thank you, General Malik, for speaking so openly, clearly. I hope the audience have heard you and understood, and I hope equally importantly, unnamed government sources have understood. The army values its tradition, it values its history, and as you said, battle honors won, as far back as World War I or even in earlier centuries, are still cherished and honored and respected. And that will always be the tradition of the Indian Army. Thank you very much for speaking to me, General Malik. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you, Karan.